Good evening and welcome to another episode of Dana Being Dana. I am your host, Dana Michelle, and you are watching an IntellectualRadio.com show on iHeart Radio Station. Today's show is, do you want to be rich or do you want to be wealthy? And I'm here with my richest friends. But I've got Gary Harris. He is the CEO and the CEO of GH Private Wealth Management, Inc. How are you, Gary?
Good.
And Gary also happens to be my cousin.
Indeed.
And a sponsor of the show. So thank you so much for being here this evening. Right. You are the financial superhero.
Indeed.
Da-da-da!
That's what they put in Forbes anyway.
That's what exactly. Saving people one at a time. And we're going to get into all that makes good wealth management in the show. So I'm very excited about it. Please stay tuned. Gary, how can people get in touch with GH Private Wealth Management?
So the phone number is 800-591-6004.
Can you repeat that?
800-591-6004.
Fantastic. You're going to want to dial that number after we talk about all the stuff we're going to get into tonight. Next to him is Miss Audrey Phillips. How are you, Audrey?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Dana.
I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. You are a credit repair specialist.
That's right.
And what I love about you, number one, is you're my friend, and you happen to be related to my girl, Heather.
Hey, Heather.
Hey, Heather. Heather is my Spellman sister, and it's such a small world. But what I love about you is your entrepreneurial spirit. And you have said that you believe that each of us can reach and teach one another.
That's correct.
And teaching good credit health.
Yes.
Good financial health.
Yes.
Is definitely something to be passed on and shared.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your company and how people can reach you?
Sure. Well, Manifested Visions is all about helping individuals realize that they do have the ability to make their dreams come true, bring dreams into reality. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we go into the segment. But there are a few ways to reach us. You can reach me by phone, which is 847-721-7198, or at our website, which is visionsmanifested.com/AP credit. And if you also want to reach me from the contact form, go to the website, scroll down, hit contact, and you can get me by email.
That's awesome. Can you repeat the phone number and the website one more time?
Sure. Phone number is 847-721-7198. And the website is visionsmanifested.com/AP credit.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Phyllis, Dr. Wilson. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Now, you are a jack of all trades. You're an independent consultant, a speaker, an author. You're a pastor.
Yes.
And you've done so many awesome things. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about you, before we get into your book, is you talked about that you believe that your purpose in life is to empower, motivate, inspire, and uplift the lives of people to achieve all that God has for them.
Absolutely.
And I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
I think your piece of this with respect to the mental preparation is incredibly important. So can you just tell us a little bit about you and your book, and we will get into your book in just a second.
Okay. Well, I am, like you said, an inspirational, motivational speaker. I know my purpose and passion in life from a young age up until now, and still even evolving, is to help people be all that they aspire to be. Whatever success looks like for them, it's that way for me too, for them. And so my focus is definitely on getting you where you need to be, whatever that takes.
Whatever that takes.
Whatever that takes. I'm one of those roll up your sleeves, get in there and make it happen.
Yep. And I want to say, financial freedom, financial independence, money moves was a very hot topic. It's the most requested show that I've had. A lot of people send me show ideas. They send me emails. They send me messages. You should do this topic. You should do this topic. And I've been requested several times to do a show about money. Money. Money makes the world go round. Everybody needs money. And so I think this is a great topic for us to discuss. So there's a ton of people tuning in. Hopefully people are sharing the show, because I think there's going to be a lot of great gems here with respect to money. And I think it starts with having the right mindset, of saving money, building good credit, spending below your means, being fiscally responsible, and planning for your future, not living paycheck to paycheck, but making adjustments in your life so that you can invest in yourself and in your future.
Right.
And that brings me to your book. The book's title
is Josephine's Coat of Many Colors.
Josephine's Coat of Many Colors.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the book is about?
The book actually came about from the female version of the Joseph story from the Bible. Because what I found in talking to a lot of women, because it's obvious I'm a woman, so a lot of women come to me more than men do and talk to me about different issues, topics, and subjects that they have going on in their everyday life. And as I listened to them and thought about what topics and what circumstances they're coming and talking to me about, guess what? It's the same things that Joseph went through in his life. He went into the pit. And in that pit, it meant something. It wasn't just him in this dark black hole. It was a waiting period for him to get in preparation for the next level. And we look at the pit as some place to just, okay, it's a dark, dreary place, so I should be just stagnant. And that's not what the pit was for. The pit and his circumstance of getting there was because he needed to first mentally get prepared for what his next steps and phases in his journey of life is. And we all are on a journey. So in that journey, there are pits. There are roadblocks. There are some stop signs that we sometimes don't pay attention to. We live in Chicago, let's face it. We're here in Illinois. There are potholes.
Absolutely.
Even on our life journey.
Especially now.
There are potholes. Absolutely. There are seasons changing. And with those seasons change, we have to be prepared or get in preparation for that coming season. Same thing with our life. Same thing with our everyday journey that we go through. And sometimes we walk around with blinders on and don't realize that these journeys and these shifts are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean the reason is for you. It could be for you to go through it to help somebody through it.
That's right.
Or get them out of it.
And what kind of seeds are you sowing in the valley? Right. It's about what you're doing sometimes when you're in the pit. Right?
Yes.
Not being stagnant.
Not just sitting back, taking it as
right. Just taking it in,
place.
Being a victim. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what are you doing to get yourself out?
That's
to get
right.
yourself up, to make things better. Improvement.
That's right.
Now you talk about your book, which is great. We've got some copies here. Where's my copy? Right here. My copy's around here somewhere. But we talk about just the different colors.
Right.
And that the colors mean something.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit briefly about what that means?
Well, Joseph had a coat of many colors. Well, we all are born with a birthright coat. And our coat has many colors. And the colors mean something because we don't serve a God who's just about black and white. He always jazzes it up a little bit.
Right.
Shake it up some. And the reason being is because he didn't want us to get bored or get stagnant. He does that because there's a message behind everything. Everything has meaning. So with the colors, they mean something. The color red is life. He shed his blood so that we may have life and have life more abundantly. So red would mean life.
Red means life.
And think about even in life, as we're walking or we're traveling, driving, we come across the red stop sign. But guess what? It's an immediate call of attention from us. And your life should always give an immediate call of attention. If you see a woman walking around in red, it stops you in your tracks and you start paying attention.
That's right.
So red is life.
Johnny Gill likes that red dress.
That's right.
That red dress, honey.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And those high heels.
And and that sweet perfume.
Right. So it means something. And just think about what life would be like if it was just black and white. Even though the color black is submissive and white means purity and innocence. But what life would we be living in if the truth was always black and white?
Can you tell some of the other colors and what they mean?
Some of the other colors, purple is power. And people don't believe this, but pink is love.
Pink is love.
Pink is love. It's not red.
Okay.
It's pink. Pink means love. Silver is will. I shared earlier with Audrey that brown is genuineness. And I noticed too, when I start talking about the colors, people start mentally thinking about what colors do I have in my house? Or what colors do I have in my closet? What colors do I have on now? Well, that's because those same colors that we live in our own in our office or even in our homes or as we're wearing every day, it means what you want to represent. I had one person on another show that I did was talking about he wears gray all the time. And I said, really? That's interesting. So why? What are you feeling so secure about? Or what is it that you're in a state of sorrow about? What does that mean?
Right.
So I told him we're gonna have to do some spring cleaning.
I hear
You
you.
have to shake it up a bit. What
Get
color do
it right.
you want your characteristic and your persona to portray?
Okay.
So he started just buying blacks and he started buying some browns. Okay.
He needs a little red in his closet.
Yeah, yes, he do. Yes, he do. But I have to say that last time I saw him, he had on red gym shoes. So I don't know.
All right. Making
Making
moves.
Chart.
Making money moves
Right.
with his bloody shoes. Well, I want to talk a little bit about credit, because I think, the song, there's no romance without finance.
That's right.
That's right.
And Audrey, you talked about, your subtitle for the show was Bringing Dreams into Reality Starts with Good Credit.
Yes.
And one of the things, I've worked hard for my credit. I think I have pretty decent credit. And I think one thing that I find so interesting, and one thing I've become passionate about, is paying off credit card balances.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is so interesting, particularly about the younger generations, is there's been a shift or a reprioritization about what's important and how we spend our money.
Right.
I see apartment complexes, for example. I drive by and there's Range Rovers, there's Mercedes, parked
with no garages,
yes. Parked outside.
Yes.
No mortgage.
Right. No mortgages, paying outside of apartment complexes. And
Yes.
to me, it just shows a shift in value
Mm-hmm.
with respect to how people are spending money. So can you give us a little taste of what advice and tips you have for people to either get and maintain good credit?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to start by saying that a lot of times life issues happen, and
Right.
that's the reason why some folks have bad credit. So, the first thing to do is, number one, make sure that people don't feel beat up about it. Things happen. We understand you may not have been mature enough early on in life to manage things, or whatever happened to cause you to have a low credit score.
It's a pothole.
It's a pothole. Thank you, Phyllis. It's a pothole. Now we're going to show you how to get out of that pothole and asphalt it so that it doesn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways we do that is with knowledge. Knowledge is power, number one. And a lot of individuals don't know that they have rights as far as credit is concerned. And that's where our company comes in. What we do is we work with individuals. We have a team of attorneys that specialize in credit repair. And they have the knowledge, the savvy, and they leverage the laws that a lot of everyday normal people don't know about. They have no idea about. They leverage the Fair Credit Reporting Act of 1971, which states that, in a nutshell, you don't have to have all that bad credit on your credit report. A lot of people believe in the myth that the credit reporting agencies are government agencies. They're not. They're businesses who are paid fees to provide a service, and that service just happens to be, let me collect data about consumers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to share that data with other businesses who pay for it. So what our team does is we leverage that to help individuals get back on their feet, remove those derogatory items. And derogatory items can be anything from bankruptcies, tax liens. It could be too many inquiries. You may have a repossession. We work with you to get old items off, items that are keeping you from making those dreams become a reality. Put you in touch with someone like Gary to help you get on your feet, understand how to manage your money, but leverage credit as a tool to be able to live out some of the dreams that many of us have. And that could be owning a home, buying a car, going on vacation. So again, our goal is to pick people up, empower them with knowledge, partner with them, and help them get back on their feet.
And I think that's so important, because I think, can you really just help people remove things from their credit report?
Yes.
I think that's fantastic. I think that's great, because I think a lot of times people feel like, just like a report card, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is.
Yep. And I'm
the grade is the grade, and I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
But you can assess your credit report, and with the help of Audrey and her team,
yes,
you can get things removed and put yourself in a better, those things probably instantly impact your score.
Yes. Oh, yes. There have been credit scores just by engaging teams, for example, a team like ours. You can see an increase of anywhere from 20 to 40 points immediately. I mean, there's a little trick that we use as a repair process of opting out of some of the reporting tools that will give you an instant 40 point increase in your credit.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know
40
about
points. 40.
Yeah.
Nice. That's fantastic. So I want to talk to you all about just some financial theories or financial the ways in which people think about finances, and just kind of get your comments and feedback. There's a lot of people out here who I think who are working hard, but they have nothing to show for it, right? They work hard, they go to work every day and don't have anything to show for it. I use the analogy sometimes. It's like, sometimes it's based on how they're spending their money, right? They may be spending their money in the wrong places or being more concerned about the wrong things. And that's where the mindset comes in, right? It's like someone who wants to be on a diet. You're going to the gym, but then you go to the McDonald's on the way home. Right. You have
those energy fries.
Right? That Big Mac. So what do you have to say to those type of people who feel like they're working hard in the gym, right? But swinging by McDonald's on the way home?
Well, I say the first thing, it starts with the mindset.
That's right.
It really does. You have to make up your mind that enough is enough. You are tired of the way things are and you're ready to make a change. If you don't have the right mindset, you will keep going to McDonald's and you'll keep going to the gym and paying the gym fee.
Paying the fees.
Popeyes too for the
Yeah, exactly. On Tuesdays, you'll be in the Popeye line. Exactly.
Fries over here and chicken over there.
Right. So it definitely starts with a mindset, I must say. Once you've got your mind ready and you're committed, then the next step is to get started.
And how do you get started? Anybody?
Well, I would
go ahead, Gary.
I think on the front end, I agree with how you think. As far as trying to take advantage of the opportunities before you, I agree that credit is a factor. However, I don't think it is. I think it's more related to speed, right? That credit affords leverage, and unfortunately for a lot of people, that leverage works against them, even when they have good credit because they're acquiring things. And increasing their lifestyle. The critical component for the creation of wealth, the first thing is really savings. And so if you recognize that income is the flow of resources and that
income is the flow of resources.
But savings is the stockpile.
Right.
And so we talk about wealth as opposed to income. And I think those things get confused by people. When we talk about wealth, it is how much is stockpiled. Not necessarily how much is coming in. And put that in perspective, a high school dropout white person today, according to a Pew study, has more wealth than a college-educated Black person. So that's...
Say that again, because I think that's
a high
impactful.
School dropout white person today has more wealth than a college-educated Black person. When you get to the top 5% of Black people with wealth, then you find out they only have 1/3 the wealth of their white counterpart. So when you start looking at this, I take a clinical approach to these things, which is trying to devoid myself of any emotion towards it and examine it for what it is. You find out that Black people have 6 cents for every $1 of wealth that their white counterpart has.
Yes.
And then we argue
6 cents.
6 cents. And here's this is not going to make anybody feel comfortable. But the reality is education is not the great equalizer. And that is so much discussed with us. A lot of what is taking place is we have accepted a false narrative. Black people in general have accepted a false narrative. And so we create these solutions that don't solve our problems. That is not to say I'm advocating that you shouldn't educate your children, because interculturally education matters. That Black kids, people of color who have an education will do better than those in their culture
those who
do not.
Right.
Have an education only adds 1 cent. So you go from 6 cents of wealth to 7 cents of wealth. Right. So the only way to cure poverty is with money. And so because of these false narratives, because we keep doing the same things,
And it's across the board.
And it's
with
across
the false narrative.
Yes, lots of false narratives. So understand. So we focus when you were talking about working hard. That is labor economic theory, right? We argue that if you work hard, you will be successful. But the truth is, it's stratification economics. And stratification economics says that whatever your parents did has a greater impact on your ability to accumulate wealth than what you're doing in your own life. What you do for now will have a bigger impact on your children's ability to accumulate wealth.
Right. And we talked about this. We talked about there being 3 types of resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So
and that's dovetails with what you're saying right now.
I want to point out what you point out. You guys talk about roadblocks. Like what you're really talking about are disruptions in income. So that's a disruption in the flow of resources.
Okay.
All right. And that can happen because of illness, unemployment. For African Americans, it's particularly because of disability or unemployment. I think
divorce.
Yeah, those things impact as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, but think in terms of like, what's the major factor? To accumulate wealth, you have to have consistent compounding over a period of time, right? Uninterrupted compounding. Compound interest is a great secret of finance, right? But
compound interest.
But you have to have resources in place. And if you don't have resources in place, you can't get that if your lifestyle exceeds your income.
Right.
Right. But the argument of simply, cutting my lifestyle doesn't solve the problem either. So we have to think in terms of doing things that have a generational impact, not just for the moment. Not even entrepreneurship is arguably a good idea, but entrepreneurs run the risk, I'm sure you guys have experienced, that if there's a turn down in demand or if there financial circumstances, things happen like in 2008, markets collapsed and people in my business had a hard time getting new accounts. If that happens, then you don't have the same security that people with a job do, I should say. So it is really about putting things in perspective and not putting the cart before the wheel. The first things to address certainly is educate so you have a good income. That's your flow. That income pays for your lifestyle, which has to be less than your income, which accumulates savings. And last year's savings plus this year's savings equals increase in wealth. It's kind of simple, I know. It's more complicated when you try to actually put it together.
Right.
But I think what's key to that is your lifestyle being manageable with respect to your income.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what a lot of times people don't do. But I want to go back to this question I had before with respect to the types of resources that there are, because you had talked about the white high school dropout versus the black college graduate. And we talked about the 3 types of resources. Your family.
That's the first one. And then you have your first is you.
You.
It's you. That's right. How much do you have? The way people survive these disruptions in income. This is everybody in the country, frankly. I'll show you how that adversely affects Black people more. But the way we survive that is first from our own resources. After our own resources, it comes out of our immediate family, those people closest to us. Okay. Then after that, it's public policy. So unemployment, that sort of thing.
Let's look into that a little bit further. So starting off with you, right? You're saying if there's a disruption of income, but I also think it has to do with what you're born into as well.
Sure. Right.
Now, obviously, you're not born with anything, but if you lose your job, for example, or you have an illness, it's you in terms of what you have, what's in your savings, I've heard sometimes up to 6 months of income is part of your savings. What
bad
are your
number for Black people? But go ahead.
You say what?
Bad number for Black people.
Bad number. What should it be?
Right. Well, at least I'd say a year, but it has to be in a position where it's compounding. We don't know how to structure those things,
right? And
we get bad advice from a lot of people who think they do, and that's why even the richest of us sometimes find themselves broke. A lot of bad information passes between Black people. It just does. A lot of it's based on cultural experience. A lot of it's based on beliefs and feelings. And the math isn't there. And you just spend a little time researching, you find out this won't work. What you're talking about now is what we're born into. That is inherited wealth. That is a separating factor between us and our white counterpart.
Right.
And I want to be clear that inherited wealth isn't always created by them. Public policy has created a great deal of the wealth that white people have today. They don't like to talk about this, but it's all true.
How so?
Well, let's start with the Head Right program in the beginning. When we were inviting white people to move to America, they were given 50 acres of land and the wherewithal to build it. Then later, homesteading, you probably heard that story. They gave away, I think, 200 some odd million acres of land. No Black people were included in this. And some white families still have that land today. And the requirements that they pay the taxes. A good friend of mine.
Homestead tax.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, actually, his family got that land, S's on it. And so he's trying to find a certificate. So if I buy the book too, I'll put it in there. But anyway, so when we talk about this inherited wealth concept, we talk about public policy. You can go right to the Social Security. Social Security was written to ensure that you could get Social Security if you didn't work in domestic service or you didn't work in farming or agriculture. What do you think all of us worked at the time?
Agriculture.
And domestic service, right?
We were definitely in the agriculture.
Right. So So what that did was this public, safety net. The argument at that time was made that it left enough holes for Black people to slip through.
Right.
You can do the same research on unemployment, do the same research on the GI Bill. You find a lot of these things have been positioned to exclude us, though it's not said racially. It's said based on the circumstance.
Right.
So public policy is a big part on the creation of wealth. But we can't do it without that. And I think you can also do it without good credit.
Well, let me
It's
say,
harder.
It is harder. And I don't want to give any misconceptions that having good credit is going to make you rich or wealthy.
Right.
It's a tool. Okay. And it's a tool that is needed in our society. I mean, let's face it, a lot of jobs, you apply for a job, what are they going to do? They're going to run your credit. You try to get insurance for a car. Insurance is mandatory in the state of Illinois.
Yep.
First thing they're going to do is run your credit. You want to put a telephone in your house or get a cell phone, they're going to run your credit. So credit is a tool that we need to live in this culture. But at no point should anyone misconstrue that tool as a means for wealth, nor should that tool be misconstrued as a means of living, getting everything you want and not being able to pay for it.
Exactly.
Because then you wind up right back in the same position. Now, feel free if that's the way you want to live. I will clean your credit up as many times as you want it cleaned. But to expect different results doing the same insane things makes no sense. Exactly. So I 100% agree with your philosophy.
Yeah.
But that's
so let me tell you what that translates to.
Yeah.
So what you described, not just that, the argument of credit is that trying to do a thing called risk-based pricing. In other words, people with lower scores will pay more for everything. There are actually bills, in place. People argue that they want risk-based pricing even for heat and air. ComEd could charge people with lower credit scores more for this,
Well, it goes even further than that. A lot of people don't realize that your zip code depicts what type of category you may be put in based on credit.
The demographic.
Right. Yes. I mean, I lived in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, and it stated that the majority of the people in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin had a credit score above 750. But then if you go a little bit further down the road to Kenosha, Wisconsin, the mean credit score in Kenosha, Wisconsin was between a 575 and a 600. So not only do they look at the score with respect to your Vanguard numbers, they look at where you live as well.
So
many assumptions are made based off of those figures.
Exactly. Right. What's the purpose of that?
To categorize.
So if wealth can be defined as well-being, which is how it's really defined as well-being. So the health is wealth, right? And the financial resources are wealth. In the same way, economically be defined as the distribution of scarce goods. If credit, high credit scores being scarce, if we're trying to marginalize a group of people, right? We're trying to, which public policy does, weaponize public policy, which it does, then if we can designate where people live and we suppress the credit scores according to zip code, then we suppress their credit without them even knowing that it has an impact. The zip code, I always suspected that was the case, but you just brought the facts and said it is.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, what we're trying to do now is, okay, we've been put in a box, we've been put in a category. Do we have to stay in that box or category? No.
Absolutely not.
So now it's time to change the status quo of Kenosha and bring them up to the same level as those who are in Pleasant Prairie. And I love people in Kenosha and Pleasant Prairie. Don't take this the wrong way. It's just that those are the facts that I know. And now let's level the playing field. Let everyone know what your rights are. Let everyone know what tools are out there and teach them how to leverage this tool, just like our counterparts have been doing for years.
Yeah.
And teach them how to grow financially.
I think what you're doing is critical. So I'll say this because I didn't sign the agreement not to. I filed lawsuits against credit bureaus And
that's what we do too.
Yeah, that's exactly what you do.
That's what we do.
Suing up in here tonight.
The methodology for dealing with this is to file a lawsuit. If you file a lawsuit, somebody will show up. I think it costs, $260 to $270 to file a lawsuit in federal court. And I've got a boilerplate of that lawsuit if you ever want to copy it. There you go.
I want to ask a question with respect to spending habits. Do you feel like spending habits are hereditary? Does debt beget debt? We talked about breaking the cycle. We talked about making changes with information. Do you think people are passing on spending habits, good and bad?
I do. I think so.
Onto their children.
I think they do.
I agree. I think it's the pathologies we pass on from, good things and bad. Your mother could cook, you can cook, right? So, I'm just saying that's kind of what happens.
You can cook, right? Exactly, my mom's not watching.
But, there are lots of things that, philosophically get passed on to the family, because I always want to remind, Black people of this. I know I sound like I'm always talking about Black people, but that's who I predominantly serve.
That's right.
I always want to remind them that a lot of this stems from no formal education in the space of capitalism whatsoever. Our English is as it is in large part because there was no formal training for a long time. And we still carry, some of us, even in the North, who've never lived in the South, have a certain Southern twang to our tone because it was passed on from our parents and our families. And so
that's right, y'all.
Right. So I think so in the same way, we got a lot of good habits from our families. We also got some bad habits, right? Yeah. With most of this, I think, is born out of survival. So we tend to repeat some of the same mistakes. Families of divorce, the children of divorced families oftentimes have a greater risk of being divorced. I think it's, still lacking the skill set to maintain a marriage, which is, for a man, is saying, yes, dear. And some men don't learn to do that.
But what's interesting? Thinking back to my grandparents and talking about credit and financial wealth. During that time, they did things entirely different.
Exactly right.
And they didn't do compounded, but they did savings. And they had no clue what credit was. Literally thinking back to my grandparents. And we're talking in the late 60s, early 70s.
I think there was a different survival mode.
And
mindset. And I think we have become much more materialistic. I think one issue has been putting too much stock in the exterior, materialistic view. If you look at how millionaires spend their money and what they invest in, you would never know it by the cars they drive.
Right.
You may never know it by what they're wearing, and how they outwardly spend their money.
Right.
I think everybody has a vice, and you should. Some people are like, I love to travel. I love this. I love that. And I do believe in living your life. But I also think one thing that many people don't do enough of is pick your poison.
Right.
Right. Sometimes we want it all. So we're gonna drive our Maybach up to the apartment complex.
Right. And borrow $10 for gas.
Right.
And be the first one in line to get those new Jordans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the light bill hasn't been paid.
Right.
So I want to speak to you. The reason why that was more prevalent at the time, I'd agree with you with regards to what happens to us, what has happened to us culturally and socially. But you could get 6% or better on a passbook savings account. Today, banks are paying less than 1/2 of 1%.
I know, it's ridiculous.
So the question is, where do you get growth? And we talk about being interest, or compounding interest, and compounding interest is what you're looking for. If we're talking about those things, there was a time when you could just put money in a bank and you could grow it over time. But there's also a time when you had to put down 50%, for your house in order to get a mortgage. So today, where do you get that growth? And the only place they've seemed to left us to get growth is in the stock market. Everything is driven towards Wall Street. Speaking as a former Wall Street executive, and that's not necessarily the place you want to put money that you need, and you still need that money growing. And so we're not very open culturally, even in society. Some 80% of people still follow that mode and methodology. It doesn't yield the results that we're looking for. Well, because you can't afford, unless you have a sufficient resource to set aside and literally let it sit for 10 to 15 years in a not just domestically, but globally diversified portfolio. And somebody help build that out for you.
Right.
And typically you can't get that kind of advice unless you have $30 million from large institutions. And I'll explain why if you open it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
So at $10 million, a yield for an investment advisor is about $100,000 a year. So if you're a large institution, the best you're doing is paying for one advisor if you bring in $10 million. Wow. There's no profit yet. At $20 million, we're talking $200,000, right? And so even that, though it's significant, may pay for some operations. At $30 million, you bring $30 million, that's $300,000 to the institution. And then you can start getting some real service. That's why people who have lower means, even as much as $5 million, who think they can get a good advisor, typically have a hard time in large institutions. I know this ain't going to go over well, but I'm just telling the truth.
You know? Like controvery.
Right, well, you're going to get some. And so the advice has been, if you have fewer than $30 million, you need a private kind of individual, a registered investment advisor that works for you. I happen to be a registered investment advisor.
Get out of here. Get out of here. What's your phone number? Okay. How do people reach you, Gary?
Again, it's 800-591-6004.
Fantastic.
I never called it. So.
Fantastic.
I don't know.
And Audrey, for credit repair, how do people reach you?
Credit repair, you can reach me at 847-721-7198 or visionsmanifested.com/AP credit.
Fantastic. And Phyllis, how do they reach you to get a copy of that book?
The office number is 312-600-5561, or they can email me at phyllis@josephinescope.com.
Fantastic. Now, Gary, I want to turn to you. You talked about creating wealth. I wanted the big question is how do you best create wealth? And you had talked about when we were planning for this show 3 different prongs. You had talked about financial planning, real estate investing, and stock market investing. Can you briefly talk about each one and kind of your advice with the benefits for each?
All right. So I think everything starts with a plan. All right. So you got to know what you want to get it. And so there needs to be a professional that does a thorough examination of what your goals and objectives are, because wealth is as personal as a fingerprint. What it is that you want. Right. So I may define wealth as the ability to work part-time and still maintain my lifestyle and be able to retire. I may define wealth as retiring early. I may define wealth as having a whole lot of money. Right. And so it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So there has to be a real consideration of what you want, then a real consideration of what you have to accomplish that. So, so before we get into what kind of investments you want to make,
right, it's
germane to the individual. I think real estate offers passive income, which I'm a big advocate of, because you can only work so long. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, at some point, I'm either too old or too tired to keep going. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, how long can you survive not working your full-time job? Mm-hmm. And, with the exception of public policy like Social Security, where I think it maxes out at a retirement age, so around, depending on how much your income is, but it's not going to be sufficient typically to support your lifestyle. A couple $1,000 if you're lucky. Right. I've got clients that just retired. Their Social Security is somewhere around $2,300 or $2,400 a month. Incomes were north of $1 million, on an annual basis. So that doesn't really contribute to their lifestyle. So real estate's important. I think if you're trying to build passive income, and credits can be a factor there unless you have cash. Mm-hmm. And you need some cash set aside also. Talk about investing in the stock market. There's lots of, again, bad information passed around. Mm-hmm. The idea of trying to pick the right stock is the first idea, find a good stock picker. Well, that's hard to do when, 75% of the market today is owned by institutions. In the 50s and 60s, where that number was switched, most of it was owned by individual households. Well, you can probably outpace a household, right? Because you work harder than the guy next door. But now you have institutions that have full-time employees doing nothing but looking for opportunity, right? So a lot of what we thought was right. They have literally teams of people, hundreds of thousands of people doing nothing but looking for opportunity. So as a result of that, your opportunity of trying to find a needle in a haystack, was the one stock that's better than everything else, is almost nil. There was a study done that showed that over a 30-year period, only 90 days counted towards the growth of the market. Only 90 days. That comes up to like 3 days per year. Wow. So can you decide what days you need to be in the market? What 3 days you have to
make a difference.
Right. You don't know. In the same way, trying to choose the best manager from that standpoint is also, I'm a I got a 5-star award. That's why I was featured in Forbes. But here's the thing, right? That's based on past performance, not based upon future performance, right? And so now you can't tell if it's luck or if it's skill. So the way to look at markets is looking on a broad basis, right? We can fish for a school of fish better than we can a single fish, right? And so we look at it, pull it over the globe. If we look at, looking at long-term growth in the markets versus, some short-term hit, it makes more sense because the reality of it is you can over time, markets have rewarded people over time. Though there's fluctuation along the way, it has rewarded people over time. So if you look over a 10 or 15-year period, if you have that kind of horizon and you have means to set aside for that purpose, then now you run a far greater probability of achieving your goals in that space. So it does come down, and you got to have somebody that acts as an advisor's job, in my opinion, is to stand between you and the institutions. So they bring all this information, which you don't understand. And the role of an advisor is to neaten that out for you, explain it to you so you know the risk and the merits of all the opportunities. And then you can act as a CEO of your own financial life with somebody that understands those things, can help you put those things together.
Wow.
That's my philosophy anyway.
Do you feel like people are impatient when it comes to
building wealth?
To building wealth, to fixing credit, to their own mindset, getting out of their own mindset?
Oh, yes.
Well, we live in a microwave society now, so everything is fast.
And if they put in $5, if it hasn't made a profit, I'm snatching it out in 15 minutes.
That doesn't work, guys.
Exactly, but
it doesn't work at all. In fact, it's counterproductive, as I talked about before, with the 3 days per year actually mattering, right? Then if you're not in markets during those 3 days, you lose the opportunity, right? And so it has to be, building wealth takes time. I mean, if you have a talent pays more, right? You can play basketball, you can sing, or whatever it is, those things pay more, but you have a lower probability of being successful. If you have a skill, you have a greater opportunity of being successful. They tend to pay less than talent, right? So if you understand that, then you got to think about in terms of, I need a long window no matter where I am. So if you can get lucky and win the lottery, most lottery winners go broke. Same because
they don't call Gary.
Well, no. You know what it really is? It's because it's not repeatable.
Right.
In order to build wealth, whatever action you're doing has to be repeatable. You think about this studio, people come here, they, I guess, pay for time. I don't know how it works, but it's repeatable. Different ones can keep coming and keep using the facility, and every time that happens, some revenue gets generated. Well, winning the lottery, you can win the lottery, get a bunch of money, pay your bills, buy a bunch of pretty stuff. But now it's time to win the lottery again, in order to keep it going. And you don't have a way of doing that. So one of the factors is it has to be repeatable. Having a job that pays a lot,
skills and talent,
right? It's another element.
Can you juggle? Can you dance?
And some skills don't pay. And if you look at the areas that I talk to young people, I get to say young people now. But I talk to young people.
I'm still in denial.
You still in denial? No, I'm crossed over. I get to say it now. But when I talk to young people, a lot of times they're focused on things that don't pay. So they're in the psychology. You can go to medical school for that, right? They're in the social work. They're trying to make a difference in our communities. They're 20 years old. They're studying nursing, which I think is a good field, but they don't want to be a doctor.
Right.
I mean, you're gonna put yourself through the process. You might as well get paid anyway. And they're cutting their dreams short too soon. Right. So,
I've seen that a lot where people jump ship or they want to start a business. And I'm not saying you have to wait forever.
No.
But you have to build up the acumen, if you will, the brand, the base before you jump out there.
But that's because they want the prize and not the process.
Exactly.
In fact, I would say the best advice you can have about being in business.
Lay it on. Share the show.
Okay, you go.
Because he's about to, here we go. The best advice. Tell him, Gary.
Okay. Be in business. Because when you're in business, you got to figure it out. So the best advice, the only way to learn and build the acumen, as you talk about, and the understanding is to be in business. You might start out selling one thing and realize that the demand for the product that you had, in fact, Wrigley's is a good story. He was really selling soap, and he gave gum away as a gift if you bought soap. But people were buying the soap to get the gum.
Oh, wow.
So he realized that while
My
selling,
market is
right,
gum,
I didn't sell goat.
Yeah.
I mean, sell gum. And so what happened was Wrigley was built from that. But he initially started selling soap. So being in business and dealing with the marketplace and offering your wares will teach you what's in demand and what you can do or after a while, you make it sell gum and soap. But figuring out what people want. That is a process that I think being in business solves.
And it takes time, and you have to pay attention. You have to be amenable
deliberate
and flexible, right?
Yeah, deliberate.
He didn't know people wanted his juicy fruit.
No.
And you have to be responsive to what the market demands.
Absolutely.
And really listening. People don't listen either.
And they don't pay attention, because a lot of times, you could be hard-headed and stubborn trying to push your soap.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this soap
I'm gonna make this soap work, right?
Right.
But if you're responsive to what your audience is asking for, like a money show,
Right.
you can bring about the good income, the good outcome. Sorry.
So I would say this: if you're going to start a business, and over 50% of African Americans start businesses, we're more likely to start a business than any other group, and that's largely because we're trying to escape corporate America and what we feel like is suppression of our opportunities in those environments.
That's why I started my business.
That's typically what happens.
That's
And some of the most successful Black businesses got the skills that a major corporation left, and they built a business that competed to a small extent. All right. So what do you need? I would tell everybody that. Here goes some more. Right. Well, you need a good lawyer. You need a good accountant from the first day. If you're going to start a business, you got to have a lawyer and an accountant, because a lot of times what happened was, and I went through this, that we find ourselves, you become more successful than you anticipated sooner than you expected.
Right.
Even though it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
The transition from, when I was, for a lot of years, it was a lifestyle business for me. I was just working, and, I was making enough to keep it going or whatever it was. But overnight, it became this, I was awash with clients and cash and all those different things, and did not manage that process well, because I did not have that team in place. And the process of getting that team in place cost me a lot of that money. So I would say that one of the first things you should do if you're going to start a business, you got to get people to work with you, that believe in you, that will cooperate with you, but have at least those two things in place.
Definitely.
And then also, bankability. I think that's where you really come in.
Yes.
And that is to position people. You should be concerned about your credit view in business, because as what I'm saying about building wealth and not being required, is I built wealth with a 520 credit score. I didn't get a good credit score in the last year or so.
Hey, it's possible.
Right, now I'm over 700.
Yeah, all right. We're going to make the credit score great again.
Okay.
The reason why I'm talking about this is because that should not be an impediment. If you're in a business that generates cash, then you can buy things. Right? You don't have to beg or borrow if you can buy.
Right.
But, credit is critical. I think I certainly paid a price for not being in that position early on, because I was a risk taker. I didn't have a job, did not have consistent income in the beginning. And so, hey, the bills got paid when they got paid, But over time, as things, picked up, I was able to, build a lifestyle around it and learn to keep my lifestyle close. My wife's responsible for that.
She's your accountant.
Yeah, well, no, she just won't let me.
All right,
she won't let me. Right.
Many colors.
She won't let me wild out. She won't let me wild out. You know what I mean?
Except for them bloody shoes.
Right, yeah, she got some of those too. But she won't let me wild out. If I want to do something to do. What she said to me, I advise all the wives to say this to their husband if you think he wants a whole lot of stuff. She said, don't do this for me. I'm satisfied. I'm already impressed with you. So now, if, listen why it works.
Repeat that line
again.
So here's what happened. I found a house on the 50th floor with a private elevator in the Gold Coast. And we have a beautiful place. You better not place.
That's amazing.
It's right. Except I wanted the 50th floor with a private elevator. And so I said, we moving. And so she said, but I thought you said you liked this place. I said, I did. So I found a place on the 50th floor with the private elevator. Plus I want the private elevator so I can say to people, no, you don't want to be at this one. We'll go around the corner to the one there.
George and Weezy, y'all. Moving on up.
So my wife says to me, she said, don't do this for me. She said, I'm already impressed with you. I don't need that. I'm satisfied. Now, why that matters is everything we do is for some woman's attention.
Here's the translation in that phrase, Gary. I'm not packing nothing else. We're going to stay right here.
Right. But the advantage is most of the things we do as men is because of some woman we're trying to impress. So my wife said, I don't need that. I'm already impressed. It took away any desire to extend, to do anything more. I was like, okay, this is fine. And she said, well, deck this place out. Get all your fancy furniture and artwork. That's what we need.
Right.
So
get new. Don't pack nothing else.
We've talked a lot about the things that we should be doing. Right. Can you briefly talk about some of the don'ts that people should be thinking about in terms of building wealth, fixing credit, being in the right mindset?
Don't listen to the naysayers.
I agree with that.
That's the first thing, because a lot of times the naysayers have said things to you like, you can't do that, or, you'd be good if you worked in customer service. And what do? You set your mind to, I need a customer service job. Because that's what they told me years ago. Oh, you'd be good in customer service. You like talking to people. Well, guess what? My job is customer service, and it's to help people get to where they need to be. So my job of customer service is not me with a headset on, sitting in front and reading a script.
Making somebody else's dreams come true.
Right. My job and my profession, my expertise is being in customer service to help people shed coats, give back those responsibilities that they've taken on that are already somebody else's, that they've just layered on top of their own stuff and never got back to who they truly are meant to be and who they were brought here to this earth to go through this journey of life.
That's right.
They're going through the journey based on somebody else telling them what their journey should be.
Very much so. Very much so.
That's deep. I would say don't abuse the credit.
That's a good one.
Leverage it to, and again, stepping stones in life. You have to step up, get to another level. But it is a tool. It's not the be all end all. I mean, I hear stories both of blacks and whites who have just lived off of credit, used one credit card to pay off another credit card, bought houses, cars, and everything else on credit, then wind up $1 gazillion in debt. And again, I will clean your credit for you.
We're scrubbing over here.
847-721-7198.
Clean up woman.
Clean up woman, yes. But be wise. Don't abuse it.
I would say don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I think a whole lot of what happens, we see, and it's not really the Joneses that live next door. It's the ones on television. Mm-hmm. And you see this lifestyle being lived out on these reality shows and otherwise. And so I agree with, obviously, I think yours is more about authenticity, that, be your authentic self. I think you're right in that credit can be a house of cards. Literally, if done incorrectly, it can clap very easily. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like most entrepreneurs start out, when I came out of college pursuing these kinds of things, and other people got opportunities, paying far more money. But then 20 years later, they were making $10,000 more, and I was making more than that. Okay, So
with that private elevator.
Right. Yeah. Then my wife didn't let that happen. But at the end of the day, I think being in your authentic space, or at least being focused on what's important to you and not looking around, competing or comparing yourself to other people. I'm in competition with me and me only. And I know what I want. And if I have those things, I am satisfied. I don't participate in, I don't suffer from envy or jealousy. You can have your dream, whatever that is. I just want my dream. And so I put my energy into getting my own dreams.
Well, I have noticed that a lot of my clients that I deal with or have worked with, they don't know what their dreams are.
Right. I see that too.
And they're stuck there because somebody else said this is what they should be doing. Somebody else said this is what their dream is. So a lot of my clients, I'm getting them out of what somebody else, and let's deal with you.
Yeah. And I think some of that too is a fear of not being able to get it. Mm-hmm. So not only that's what you don't know, but it's what you really want. You're afraid to vocalize or because it becomes absurd to other people or whatever it is. So part of it has to be, I think that what you're doing now has real meaning. Like one of the things I ask people is, what would you do if I gave you $100 million, but only 5 years to live? That's one of the ways I draw that out, because most people think they live with all the time in the world, limited money.
Why'd you pick 5 though?
Well, because I need to minimize the amount of time you have so you can think about what you really want to do.
Critically.
Yeah, critically, because we think in terms of money is limited, but time is not. And the truth is, time is limited,
right?
And money is not. There's a whole lot of money to be had, right? So if you had $100 million, you're not working anymore for the purpose of making money. You're not worried about putting things in position for legacy and otherwise. Now it becomes, what are you going to do when you get up in the morning? What does your life look like when you get up in the morning, right? What do you do?
How are you spending your time?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. So we had $100 million. If you think about that, even to the audience, if you think about that, if I don't have to worry about money, what would I do?
I'm not going to get up at 5:45.
That's fair.
Right. That's one thing I'm not going to do.
But I think it puts it in perspective and causes people to think about really how they want to spend their time. I can tell you this in my experience. Black people always tell me how they want to spend the money. And so let's assume that's taken care of.
Right.
How you going to spend your days?
Right.
And I hear the same thing every time, with exception once. But it's mostly they want to travel. They want to spend time with their family. They want to build some kind of legacy for their children, their children's children. And I think that has value, but it is really about getting in touch with, do you really want to work the job you're in? Most of the time people say no.
Right.
Right? Do you really want to live where you live? What would you, so think about what you want to do, what you want to do, what you want to be, what you want to have, where you want to go. That's what
Figure out how to add another $100 million to that $100 million.
Why bother? If you got 5 years to live, that money doesn't mean that
we can
much.
leave
Right.
it.
You got it all.
Yeah.
You got it all.
Right.
Thank you all so much
We done?
for being here. We're almost done. We're almost done. And I will say, when it comes to wealth and building wealth, I do believe that the best things in life are free.
Yes.
As cliche as it sounds. But I just wanted to briefly share, I had a health scare last week, and I ended up having my first mammogram that revealed a mass, and it ended up having to be biopsied. And I thought about this show because I thought about, am I prepared financially if I was sick? I have children that depend on me, family members that depend on me. Do I have enough saved up? Do I have enough reserves? My credit score is okay. But I think, I thought about a lot of these things, and I'm just appreciative of my support system, my family, my village, and it really made me appreciate some of the things in life that are priceless. So I just wanted to thank everybody. I appreciate all the concern, the calls, and everybody, being very supportive of that. I wanted to thank you all for being here. I think we've gotten a lot of great feedback and comments. I'll make sure to connect people. But also, can you tell people once again how they can get in contact with you?
You can reach me at the office at 312-600-5561 or my email, which is Phyllis@Josephine's Coat. The book is Josephine Coat of Many Colors. And for groups and organizations, there is a workbook that goes with that with some interactive activities. I can be reached not just for personal coaching and consulting, but if you also want to do workshops or conferences, we can put things together that's geared towards your group or organization. I prefer to work with individuals because it goes hand in hand, and I'm able to dig deeper with one person one-on-one. But I love groups because I find out more information, especially for future books.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Great.
And the next one is Silent Tears.
Silent Tears coming soon. Get ready. Audrey?
Okay, I can be reached at 847-721-7198 or visit the website, which is visionsmanifested.com/AP credit. If you scroll down to the bottom and you want to send me email, you can click on the contact form, fill out your information, and put in comments, and I'll get it that way as well.
Fantastic.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't address your health issue and the way of protecting against that. The reality of it is, critical illness insurance, people call it cancer insurance, but typically covers more than just cancer, cover heart attack, stroke. Those represent interruptions or disruptions in income that can have catastrophic effects on people's financial lives.
Absolutely.
And their credit score as a result.
Yep.
But I want to tell you, it's got to be put together right. I think the biggest problem we have is we think everything's the same, that if we talk to one person, they all got it. But at the end of the day, I hate the music, so I got to shut up. But
It's like
critical illness insurance is cheap, and we don't own it. It's very cheap. So how do you get in touch with me? 800-591-6004. That's GH Private Wealth Management.
Fantastic. And of course, if you hit me up, I can connect you to all of these people. These are my friends. You guys are amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Next week on Dana B and Dana, we have got the marrieds versus the singles, y'all. It's going to be a hilarious good time. We're going to be talking about relationships. We're going to be talking to married folks. We're going to be talking to single folks. It is a show you do not want to miss. Thank you all so much for tuning in. See you next week.